In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement. I'm your host, Rick Everett. If you're new to the show, welcome in. And if you're one of our many regular viewers, welcome back. We've got a full panel for your viewing pleasure today to include Investment Advisor Jonathon McCoy with Market Advisory Group, CPA Pat Doherty with Market Tax Services, Market Medicare Advisors Trey Basa, a Medicare advisor, and Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm. Gentlemen, welcome all in. An inattentive advisor can cause avoidable tax and investment problems. Jonathon, you were discussing a situation today that no one looks forward to and most people are often surprised by. What happens upon the loss of a spouse in retirement? You mentioned the story of Teresa and how the team here at Market Advisory Group has helped her since first meeting her shortly after her husband passed away.
Right.
Tell us a little about her situation, if you would.
Well, Teresa came to us from a former financial advisor of hers. An interesting thing in Teresa's situation, she actually had an accounting background, so she knew something was amiss before she had come to meet with us. But the idea of working with a financial advisor that had access to a tax team, such as Pat and our variety of CPAs and our tax team with Market Tax Services, it opened her up to the idea that maybe this is something we should have more of an integrated approach on. So the situation that arose was her husband passed away, and less than a month later her financial advisor had inappropriately transitioned his IRA into Teresa's name, which, as Pat can describe in more detail, especially in our one-on-one meetings, that's not necessarily the way you want to handle things right away, because then we start to enact required minimum distributions to one spouse as opposed to being able to reduce or at least spread out those minimum distributions over a longer period of time. It's a convoluted process that the IRS has created, unfortunately, but just another one of those hurdles that we have to climb over, especially upon the loss of a spouse. And Teresa was specifically looking at, A, could anything be done to unwind this situation, but B, going forward, what was the way in which she was going to be able to use her financial assets, her retirement accounts primarily, to help minimize her tax situation in the future, help minimize how much taxable income she was going to have to take. In past episodes, I know we've talked pretty in depth about taking too much income or more income than you need to spend or live on can cause compounding tax situations over a longer period of time. And that's where we enlist the services of Pat and our tax team to make sure that we have that bigger picture, longer term perspective on how to minimize Uncle Sam's impact on your retirement as well.
So Pat, what are some of the things you looked at when planning for Teresa after her husband passed and the former advisor had made some mistakes?
Well, one of the big things you could do when a spouse passes, which is a good thing, you could still file a joint return.
Not the spouse passing, right? Spouse passing is never a good thing, but yeah, just a benefit from the financial plan strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You can still file a married filing joint return for the last year, that year. And in doing so, you could take advantage of the rates, the lower rates on your income. And we were able to change around some of her investments to get her some kind of tax-free protection. But our hands were tied with a lot of it, and she understood that. But we were able to do quite a bit of tax planning with the investment she had and get her into a better taxable position.
Jonathon, it sounds like this is a situation where had she had the benefit of an entire team working with her or for her from the onset, a lot of this could have been avoided.
That's exactly right, and that's why we emphasize that people are asking the question, what level of service are you actually getting for what you're paying for? I mean, ultimately, even when we dug into her financial portfolio and her investments, it turns out she was actually paying more in fees than what she would have been had she been working with us at Market Advisory Group. But beside the expenses, it's really the level of service that could have saved her several thousands of dollars in taxes, both in the year that her husband passed away and years into the future. So it's coming up with that proactive strategy and making sure that you're not doing things that are too late to unwind in this case, unfortunately. But really going forward for Teresa and for any other person that's going through the loss of a spouse, you should have a plan in place ahead of time, because we never know when our final day on earth is going to be, unfortunately, and especially losing a spouse, the changes to your tax situation, how much income the IRS is going to force upon you, even though your expenses are likely to decrease. Sometimes we find that people are in this unavoidable rising taxable income situation that it should be addressed years ahead of time, not just in the moment that you're dealing with all of the stress of that situation. And that's a difficult time to be dealing with some of these concerns to begin with.
And I would have to imagine that these are somewhat difficult conversations to have for you as an advisor, because you've got a couple sitting in front of you and you have to address the fact that someone's going to go first. And so what is the contingency plan in a lot of those cases?
Yeah, exactly. And we do have to care for people with caring hands, with sort of the white glove strategy, and for lack of a better way of saying it, that's why we rely on these additional professionals in-house, is to make sure that we're not just simply saying how much money do you have and where can you invest it. That's ultimately the end of the conversation with the majority of financial advisors. It's how are you going to be spending your money? What is the tax implication going to be on that money? Are there adjustments you can be making throughout retirement to make sure that you're minimizing your tax burden over a period of the decades that you're going to be living on this money? Most people are so focused on the here and now, and especially from a tax perspective, as tax guy Pat, I'll call you. But as Pat can reiterate, most people are only addressing those tax issues at tax time when it's usually too late to make any adjustments.
Pat, do you find it's difficult to sometimes get people to focus down the road and picture their life different than it is today?
Sometimes that's very true. A lot of people, when they want to get their taxes done, they come in to get their taxes done. They just want to know, do I owe, or am I going to get a refund? They're not really doing any tax planning. When they come in like that and just want me to do a tax return, I'm just recording history. I can't really help them out and do some tax planning. I need to talk to them before December 31st to be able to do something for their tax year that they're going to be filing for.
And when a spouse does pass, the surviving spouse has that year left as far as filing a married joint return. And after that year has eclipsed, then that is no longer an option?
The only time you could still file married filing joint is if you have some dependent children. You can still do that for 2 more years. The tough thing when a spouse passes is the last thing you want to be thinking about is your money. You're grieving the loss of a spouse, and that's why it's good to talk to a planner before you know, throughout the year. And then when something unfortunate like that happens, we could step in and do the work for them. They don't have to try to run and find us. We go and find them.
This is exactly another situation that could have been made better had her former advisor had access to a tax team like Market Tax Services. But it's good to know that MTS's team members and expertise can look at someone's situation like this and improve on what seemed to be an irreversible mistake made by another advisor. In our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about how the team with Market Medicare Advisors stands ready to help when changes to your retirement health plan are necessary. Do you have a whole team looking out for your best interest? If not, you could be paying more for incomplete advice. At Market Advisory Group, we practice a holistic approach to retirement planning, from the financial and tax planning sides to Medicare advising and estate planning, and we do it all under one roof for your convenience. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, our operators are standing by right now to take your calls at 316-252-8707, and be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. We'll be back with more Ion Retirement right after this.
When people work with Market Advisor Group, they get a feel of sense of family. There's a lot of relationships that are made and going on in this conference room, and we really take a lot of pride in that and a lot of satisfaction in that.
Every client we work with, we make a custom-made plan to fit them and help reach their goals in life. Another thing that makes us unique is we want to meet regularly with our clients and have reviews.
Market Advisory Group, we have a process, and the process we take people through is first to understand what they have, understand who they are, and then we put together an income plan for them and show them how they can look forward to retirement and not look, though retirement is going to be a stressful time. It needs to be a stress-free time.
A few unique features of working with Market Advisor Group is holistic in-house financial consultants. We've got an in-house CPA, Joshua, an in-house estate planning attorney, Gerald, an in-house Medicare advisor, Bill. We rely on all of those professionals for, again, additional service within our consultative process, making sure that we've got the advice and the expertise behind the recommendations that we make.
You know, as an advisor, I'm not there to sell them one way or the other. I'm there to educate them, to let them know what their choices are. Then I try to help them make the right choice where they can save money and feel confident in their decision.
Absolutely the best part of my job is getting a stack of paperwork from somebody and they don't know what to do, and then I can turn around and give them back a tax return, but also to be able to explain what they can do next year that will give them a better answer than what they had this year.
When we've got clients that are calling and they need to help out a child or need to help out a grandchild or need to help themselves out and they're in a situation they didn't expect to be in, I really relish the opportunity to help them through that, help them make the educated decisions in somewhat stressful situations, because a lot of folks don't have that type of counsel.
We meet with so many people one-on-one in this office that don't ever end up becoming a customer or doing business with us, and that's okay. But when they leave our office, we know that we've helped them either get some answers to some of the questions they had or get some clarity on maybe their own path.
But one of the things that we hear all the time is, I wish I would have met you guys 10 years ago, because how much further could I be down the road? Well, Johnny Appleseed said, you know, when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. And so if we can help people today going forward, that just brings an incredible amount of comfort and excitement for us to come to work every day.
Hi, and welcome back into Ion Retirement. In our last segment, we discussed a situation where a recent widow, Teresa, was distraught with mistakes that had been made by her former advisor prior to finding Market Advisory Group. A similar story can be told regarding changes to your health insurance and Medicare throughout retirement. Trey Basa, how does the team at Market Medicare Advisors help people when they need to make changes to their health plans, both at retirement and during open enrollment each year?
That's a great question. A lot of people are just really unsure of the timeline and when things need to happen for their Medicare changes or even Medicare enrollment. In terms of Medicare supplement plans, you can change those any time of the year and have those changes in effect the first of any month. It's just a matter of going through some underwriting. Now, it's a different case when you're turning 65. Your timeline is 3 months before your 65th birthday month. On the other side, you have Medicare Advantage plans, which again, you can enroll at any time when you're approaching your 65th birthday, but annual enrollment is from October 15th through December 7th, and that is the time of year every year that you can change your Medicare Advantage plan.
Now, when people are planning for Medicare, are there different things that come into play? As an example, you talk about open enrollment versus annual enrollment. When, if somebody wanted to add riders per se to their Medicare coverage, if they wanted to do something that would help protect them in the event of cancer or in the event of other health issues, when are those changes able to be made and how are they made?
Cancer is a great topic to bring up in the case of riders because, one, you have to look back at like a family history and whether or not you are susceptible to cancer, and it's a big thing on people's minds. So to kind of elaborate on that rider can be added on at any time, and it will be in effect the first of the month with everything else that starts. Specifically with cancer, you can get a low premium every month in which you get a large sum on first diagnosis. So for instance, you are diagnosed and you have this rider in effect upon that first diagnosis. As soon as your doctor says something, you get that payout to help with any future treatments for that diagnosis.
Now, when people are considering different types of insurance in regard to Medicare, is that also the time when they might be looking at things like insurance for final expenses or insurance for long-term care?
Yeah, so a lot of times it's towards the end of the conversation that people they want to talk about them living a healthy life. But towards the end of appointments, we can gravitate towards things like long-term care or final expenses, in which we are trying to set things up before their end comes.
Jonathan, in meeting with people from the financial end of things, I would just have to guess that even though they're meeting with you as the financial advisor, do you ever become inundated with questions that are completely out of the realm of financial advising as far as Medicare, taxes, estate planning?
Right. And it's easy to feel like you know enough to be dangerous, but you don't want to be dangerous with your health insurance. You don't want to be dangerous with your taxes. You don't want to be dangerous with your estate plan, final expenses, all of these things. It's not worthwhile. And ultimately, getting unlicensed advice like that is really a dangerous thing in your financial plan. So enlisting the help of the additional professionals here, one of the things that I've discovered as we've grown our team here at Market Advisor Group is the fact that not only are we learning a lot as financial advisors, really this team is revolutionizing what we do as from a planning perspective. As I've mentioned in previous segments, so many financial advisors are concerned with how do we invest the money, how do we get income on the money, and that's about the extent of the conversation. They never go to the extent of, well, how much is your health insurance going to be costing? Are there additional risks in your health situation in this case that should be insured against? Those are questions that us as financial advisors are trained to ask that help trigger us in your situation to say, well, if the answer to some of those questions are yes, we should address these things, bring Trey, bring any of the other Market Medicare advisors into the room to address those concerns. It's no different with the tax planning, it's no different with the estate planning. Having those appropriate questions ready to ask, because as individuals, we've lived our entire lives living paycheck to paycheck, putting as much away in our 401ks as we can. We don't know what we don't know. And not knowing what questions to ask is one of the more dangerous situations to put yourself in. And we encourage people to educate themselves, and we focus heavily on education throughout this consultation process before anyone signs anything with us. Before they decide, I need to change my advisor, I need to change my investments, we're looking at the whole picture to see what direction this entire team might guide them.
Jonathan, you and I have talked in past shows about the set it and forget it mentality of investment planning, which has become all but passé. Mm-hmm. Trey, when it comes to your Medicare plan, how often should that be reviewed?
We definitely encourage people to come in every year to review what they currently have, as well as what is available on the market and the changes that are coming to both their current plan and other carriers and their products. Every year, you can switch supplement plans any time of the year. You just have to go through some underwriting. With the Medicare Advantage plans, that's the annual enrollment period, October 15th through December 7th. And it's around that time we encourage everybody to come back in, review what you have, as well as what you could have from any other carrier.
Do you have a whole team looking out for your best interest? If not, you could be paying more for inadequate or insufficient advice. At Market Advisory Group, we have the whole team under one roof for your convenience, and we have our operators standing by right now to take your calls for a complimentary, no-obligation consultation. The number to call, 316-252-8707. Again, 316-252-8707. And I also encourage you to check out our website at ionretirement.com. There you can view past episodes or leave a question that we could use in a future show. We'll be back with the final segment of this edition of Ion Retirement right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. By running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. Gerald Eidelman, Eidelman Law Firm. In our first segment, Jonathan and Pat outlined how the Market Advisory Group team helped recently widowed Teresa through the transition into her new investment and tax plan. How was Eidelman Law Firm able to enhance that planning regarding updating of her estate to account for the loss of her husband?
Well, one of the things we had to look at is what were her circumstances after her husband's passing. One of the things we discovered is she had 3 children, but they all were pretty well off. And so they did not need to an inheritance. In the same period, during this time, she had gotten really close to a friend of hers, a younger lady, who was like a daughter to her. And she was going to need some help. She had 3 kids, and she was raising them as a single mom. And so she directed her desires to help this mother and changing her plans so that when she passed away, the money that now she had amassed would go to help this woman rather than all of her children.
So that would have been through the vehicle of a trust, I would guess?
Yeah, that was the most efficient way to do it. It would protect the money from the mother in case there was any creditors or any lawsuits or anything like that, and also would carry on to take care of her children going into college and later on in life. And in a trust, you can preserve that money. It doesn't get distributed and then wasted or spent away. It can be kept in lockdown, essentially, and distributed over time.
So in essence, a trust, a well-executed trust can actually give the person, the grantor of that trust, control beyond death.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we call it. I mean, sometimes I say, I tell it, do you want to reach out, your hand, after death? I mean, it's kind of like reaching from the grave. And the fact is that sometimes people need it. You have situations where somebody has a child who is disabled and they need a trust. Or somebody who has a child who has an addiction. You don't want to leave them their money. You want to be able to help them and provide for them, but not cause them more pain and trouble. So that's when a trust is extremely helpful and efficient way to transfer assets.
Jonathan, what would Teresa have had to go through had the entire team not been under one roof here to assist in all of her planning needs?
Yeah, it's somewhat difficult to imagine. I mean, I'm happy we were able to help her in her specific needs in this situation. She had actually shopped around and talked to a couple of other what we refer to as sort of these corner store or big box advisors prior to coming to meet with Market Advisory Group. And what we found was the same thing that led into, and what she found was the same thing that led her into the situation she was from a tax perspective before meeting us. Her financial advisor, only looking at the tip of the iceberg of her financial situation, how is your money invested, wound her up in a little bit of hot water. She was fortunate to be educated to the point as a former accountant that she knew something wasn't right. And what I worry about is other folks that don't know what to be looking out for in those situations. So as we've even talked about, extending that into the health insurance needs, extending that into the longer term estate planning needs, it wasn't just Teresa coming to us for financial advice and how do I invest my money. Her primary concern was the tax plan. But then knowing the exact questions to be asking along the way allowed us to open up and put together a more holistic plan for her and benefit her through the services of our financial professionals here. The struggle that I find is, as I mentioned before, most people don't know what to be asking their financial advisor. They sort of come in and a lot of times advisors are talking over our head. We don't even understand what the conversation led to anyway. We might get economic education or whatever may be going on that doesn't really have a direct impact on your day-to-day life. The concerns are, how am I going to be using my money? How can I keep Uncle Sam as far out of the picture as possible? How are my health insurance needs going to be met? And then how, if I were to pass away, in her circumstance, it was very near and dear to her in a very recent circumstance where she lost her husband. She knew if something had happened to her, as she was the last remaining caretaker of these assets, something were to happen to her, what was going to happen with those assets as is was not going to be really what her wishes were. And bringing Gerald into the picture there was a key to the process.
Are there times where the client that's coming in for the consultation maybe doesn't know which questions to ask, but you are able to ask them for them?
Yeah, exactly. And we train ourselves all the time on how do we get people opening up. Because talking to a new financial advisor, a lot of times people come in apprehensive. You're worried about getting a sales pitch. You're worried about making a decision that you're not fully educated on. We take time throughout this process. We're normally meeting with people 3, even 4 times before we even start making recommendations. Discovery, discovery, discovery is the key, and leaning on the expertise of the rest of our professionals is the only way that we know how to plan.
It's the whole team approach, and that's what we do here at Market Advisory Group. I want to thank our panelists today, Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm, Trey Basa of Market Medicare Advisors, Pat Doherty of Market Tax Services, and Jonathon McCoy, Partner and Investment Advisor with Market Advisory Group. Thank you all so much for being with us in this edition of Eye on Retirement. Do you have a whole team going to work for you? If not, you could be missing crucial pieces of the puzzle that could end up costing you or your heirs down the road. At Market Advisory Group, we practice a holistic approach to retirement planning. Everything from the estate planning to the Medicare advising, as well as the tax planning and the financial end of things. And we do it, again, under one roof for your convenience. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation, our operators are standing by right now to take your calls at 316-252-8707. Again, that's 316-252-8707. And I encourage you to check out our website at eyeonretirement.com. There you can catch past episodes as well as schedule an appointment for yourself for that no-obligation consultation or leave us a question for potential use on a future show. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Rick Everett along with the whole team here reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
This broadcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or is excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.